Hey guys, Jeffries here and welcome back to FMTB. Last episode we did a bit of work with regards to coaching staff, and we're trying to bring in new director of footballs, new head of youth developments, little things like that. What we're going to do now is use our director of football and our new assistant manager to try and find us a decent coaching team, because at the end of the day that is what is most important in a game like this, is having good coaches to help your players progress as footballers. Right, AD Stovell is a guy I like to bring in quite early on, but I like to bring him in as a fitness coach mainly, so we're going to do that because he's good at fitness coaching. We could only afford £600 a week. He wanted £900 a week. This is again a bit of a problem. So you can see we're struggling to find coaches. I reckon pretty much all of these guys will be outside of our restriction. Although we can afford this guy, Paul Bennett. We have to waive compensation for managerial role, which I'm not too keen on. So we'll see if we can remove that clause. No, he wants that clause in. Well, we're desperate for coaches right now, so I will accept those terms. Right, so we have a coach. We now need a goalkeeping coach, so we'll go into that. We'll change this to goalkeepers, and we'll untick that box. And actually, the one that came up was Tim Flowers. Now, he's a very good goalkeeping coach, so let's see if we can afford him. It doesn't look likely. Nope, he's not playing ball. Okay, so let's go for somebody else. Stacey Beckham. Now, he works for Welling, so he might be willing to take the job. There you go. He will take our job as a goalkeeping coach. That's important to us because for him it's a chance to get into the Football League, which is always important. And that's what we use as a bargaining chip, basically. The last thing we want is a fitness coach. So let's see who we've got that comes up. Dean Riddle is the best candidate so far. So let's try him first. And he will accept our terms. So that's brilliant. So that's 3 coaches who are coming into the club, as well as hopefully a head of youth development. So we'll advance time. We'll see how we get on there. Now, I was meant to be focusing on training, I've just realised, but because of all of this, I lost track of what I was doing. But this is important, having to do this. This is probably, this setup here is the most important thing you can do in a game when you're not only when you're starting, but also even 6 years down the line. What you're doing now is the most important thing that you do on this game, because it's getting the foundations in place for a strong, successful team. There's only one person I'm waiting for. There he is, David Hockaday. And now he's on board too. That is fantastic. And you can see we're only 5 or so days away from our first pre-season friendly. And what we're going to do here, coaching assignments. Now, I'm just going to ask my assistant to worry about that for now. And what I'm going to do is go into staff responsibilities. Now, this is important. All of this stuff here, I'm going to keep as me. Hires, fires, staff, all that sort of thing. But finds and makes offers for players for your first team. You can have this as you do it yourself, and regardless as to what setting you have, you still do it yourself. But I like to have my director of football do that, because sometimes they find players that you wouldn't even imagine signing, and they turn out to be really, really good for you. Plus, they also make sure that contract negotiations and things like that are done, which again, is really good. Finds and makes offers for young players for the future. That's going to be my head of youth development. Handles new signing contract negotiations for players in your first team. That is going to be... I'm going to leave that as me, actually. No, I'm going to have that as a director of football. And for the youth players, I'm going to have that as head of youth development. Finalises first team signings. That's going to be me for both first team and young players for the future. I have the final say. Finds a new club for first team players you've listed for transfer or loan. I'm going to have that as me. However, for the youth team, I'm going to have that as the head of the youth development, because then he's in charge of making sure all our youth players are developing properly. Whereas for the first team, I've sort of been conned in the past by my director of football because they've let a player go for a lot less than they're worth, or they've rejected a really, really good bid, and I haven't been able to convince the other team to submit that bid again. Decides which first team players' contracts to extend and handles negotiations. That's going to be my director of football, and for the youth players, it's going to be the head of youth development again. Sets assignments for the scouting team. For now, that's going to be the director of football, but when a scout comes in, a new head scout, that will be their job. Runs general training for the senior squad. That is going to be me, and I'm also going to do it for the youth team. Sets up individual training. That's going to be my assistant manager, and for the youth players, for now, it's going to be the head of youth development. Runs match training for the first team. That is going to be me. But for the under-21s, I'm going to keep that as my assistant manager for now. And to bring youth players in, that's going to be my head of youth development. And that's that done. First team. I would like my assistant manager to attend press conferences for me, because that is a waste of time as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't actually help your team at all. Arranges friendly matches. Again, that's going to be my assistant. Gives team talks. I'd like that to be me for this. Sets pre-match instructions on opposition players. That I'm going to leave to my assistant. Manages team in friendly matches and plays with my tactics. I'm going to keep that. Right. I'm going to just assign my assistant manager to look after these two teams for now. Because that's not my job at the moment, to run the youth teams. Again, this series is designed to make the game nice and quick for you. So to run the youth teams as well, it's not really that good. Ensure you're contacted by agents about. I'm going to go for just future prospect or transfer listed players. So players we can either get on the cheap, or players who we can get on the cheap and will end up being really, really good and worth a lot of money. That's important. When I scout a player, add him to my shortlist just for a month, so we can keep an eye on him for 4 weeks and then he'll drop off the radar again. When you offer a player to other clubs, I'm going to offer him at 75% of his normal value. Because basically, if I'm offering a player for transfer, it means I just want to get rid of them. So 75% of the transfer is good. And there's a little clause that I add into the transfer deals when I do that, which actually makes 75% worthwhile doing. So that is fine. I'm going to allow a player to play against my team when he goes out on loan, but I'd like at least 50% of his wages to be paid for, and 25% of his value. Because again, I don't want to do things on the cheap. I like to bring money into the club and keep the club afloat. This section down here, I like to speak to my coaching team every month, my backroom staff every month, and all of this stuff, I just choose the first man at the top of the list. Because at the end of the day, I think it lists them in importance of who's good for what. So that's how it works. Right, guys. Yes, I want to confirm my changes. So this is how it's looking so far. We've had the tactics set up, 3 different types of tactics, set pieces for all of that. When we come back in the next episode, we'll start looking at training methods. And apart from that, everything's going to plan. We've got a new coaching staff coming in, and things are looking good. So, I'm going to end this episode here, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, be sure to click the subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, be sure to click the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to my channel, thank you guys for your continued support. I've done this so many times now, I really should be able to get it right. Unbelievable. Anyway, till next time, I will see you soon.